My name is Paige Warthen. I'm an Ashtanga Yoga practitioner from Las Vegas. And after the first video that we made on the pick up and jump back, there were a lot of questions as to whether or not I could break that down so that it was more approachable to the audience. So that's what I am going to do today, is step by step show you how to do the pick up and jump back in a way that's a lot more accessible depending on your level. The first thing that you would do is, if you are really trying to build that strength to get off the floor, I personally recommend trying to lift up with straight legs. And I do this because, especially as women, our hip flexors aren't quite as strong. And this action actually, it makes you work a little bit harder. So when you go to cross the legs, it's that much easier. And when I was learning it, I would bring my fingers like almost to my calves, and then I'd lower my torso down so I was very compact. And then I'd push away from the floor to get that lift. Hold for 5 breaths. I did this for months until I was finally comfortable. Once that is achieved and you can actually pick up from here comfortably, then you can work on the next step. Now, one thing that I want to express that's very important is rooting, because the way I approach a lot of my yoga practices with physics, and so when you root, you actually create a lift at the same time. So the more you can push into the floor, the more you'll naturally get a lift from that. So the more I can push off, the more my body will automatically lift. As I'm pushing down, I'm springing up. So once you can actually hold here, the next step would be to drop the feet to the wrists. Then, once you're comfortable there, what I learned was to bring the head down. And then from there, bring the legs back. It was a trick I learned from Yoga Journal, and I found it to be a great tool because it more or less tricked my senses into learning what I needed without feeling defeated. Because I found that it was really hard to overcome this hurdle without constantly feeling like I was never going to get there. So as long as I kept my feet off the ground, i.e. on top of my hands, I wasn't touching the ground and I was still able to maintain the lift. So again, just to recap, pushing down, lifting up, dropping to the wrists, then bringing the head forward. Eventually, you won't have to bring the head all the way down. It'll just come forward, and your hips rotate, and your legs come back. In this action that we're trying to achieve here, the thing that most people struggle with is bringing their body weight forward. But that's the action that you need. The legs are more or less ornamental. Once you get to that point of lifting and rotating your hips up, it's not about keeping the legs up and back. The legs, you could hold them forever. The strength and the action you need is from the hip flexors up. So if you've got that down, you can do this. But like I said, it's a matter of being able to take the weight forward, which is why you want to drop the head down. And then eventually you just get used to that lift and maintaining it through the upper body to where they just go back on their own. The feet just go back on their own.